Welcome back to Session 0, where I discuss Dungeon World every Wednesday. Today I want to talk about the tools I use to create and run dungeons in Dungeon World. There are 6 tools I use to create and run dungeons in Dungeon World. 5 of them can be found on DriveThruRPG, 2 of them are my own products, and one of those is Pay What You Want. If you found this video on DriveThru, you're looking at the landing page for that Pay What You Want product. If you found this video on my YouTube channel, you can find a link to it in the description. I've included affiliate links to each of the other products in the description of this video as well, meaning if you use those links, I get a tiny percentage of that sale. So let's take a look at them. The first tool is actually the first supplement for Dungeon World I ever purchased, the Perilous Wilds by Jason Lutz with assistance from Jeremy Strandberg. It has a lot of fantastic content, and the 8th chapter is all about dungeons, entitled Plumb the Depths. I've used those rules as written a couple times, but there's a lot of dice rolling, flipping to other pages, rolling more dice, and so on. That's not a bad thing, it just didn't fit my playstyle. I don't use those rules anymore, but the method still has a lot to offer. There are 3 ideas from Plumb the Depths which I use in my own dungeon creation procedures. Themes, which are concentrated collections of details, common and unique areas, which fit perfectly with the next tool, and the dungeon's foundation, which consists of the dungeon's creators, purpose, and ruination, all of which are especially important details to consider. Do you need the Perilous Wilds to use these ideas? No, but in my opinion, the Perilous Wilds is a fantastic addition to any Dungeon World library. The second tool I use is 5-Room Dungeons by John 4. John assigns narrative moments to each of his 5 rooms, which is useful, but there's one thing more valuable than that to me. The 5-Room Dungeon isn't about dungeons which have 5 rooms. The 5-Room Dungeon is about the 5 most important, or you might say unique, rooms in a dungeon. Then you're meant to take light notes about or improvise everything else, the common areas of the dungeon. So what I've done is combine those 4 elements, foundation, themes, common and unique areas, and the 5-room dungeon concept, into a single worksheet. I'll discuss what these things here mean when I get into running the dungeon, which you can do for other players or for yourself. Once you have your foundation and themes, you can decide how many common areas there are between each unique area by marking and bisecting these 3 boxes in each column. For example, in this dungeon, there's only 1 common room before you get to the first unique area, and 6 between the room with the giant spider and the Draugr Lord. Then, plan the enemies which appear in the common areas. You can make any notes about the unique area in each column in this box with a word, playing card symbols, which I'll talk about shortly, and this area here as well, and then plan the enemies in the unique areas. I'll give you 10 seconds to look this over, or you can just pause the video, then I'll tell you something cool about this particular dungeon. If you enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. It really helps the channel grow. If you've ever played Skyrim, you may notice that this is just Bleak Falls Barrow, or at least an approximation of it. If you're interested in more Skyrim-like ideas, check out the second issue of my Session 0 zine. I've linked it below as well. Filling this worksheet out is quick and easy, but there's another tool I use if I want to spice it up with some randomness. So let's go down to the camera and I'll show you that. So I've shown how you can create a dungeon from scratch or recreate one from other media, but as far as randomness goes, especially when you're talking about the dungeon's foundation, I haven't found anything better than the Pixel Loot Dungeon Maker by Endymion Games. This deck of cards gives you the place which you can alter. This gives you the builder's purpose and the ruination with the fields on these cards. So what I typically do is I'll deal out 7 or 8, choose the ones I want to use and alter them in any way I see fit, and then I'll write those down as my foundation. So in this particular spread, I do like the idea of a dungeon behind a bookshelf in a library. Built by a rogues guild sounds interesting. As a secret passage sounds interesting. and betrayed and destroyed before they could finish. So in just a few seconds, I have come up with my foundation, a dungeon in a library behind a bookshelf, built by a rogues guild as a secret passage, but they were betrayed and destroyed before they could finish. I'll write these down in Foundation and start with the themes, and then I'll show you the next tool I use. So for themes, really quickly, I see betrayal. This could be things like poison in the dungeon. It could be like corpses that you see have been stabbed in the back. Again, themes are collections of details, so these could mean all kinds of different things. The next tool I use is my own Dungeon World Oracle deck. I will deal out probably about the same number. I'll deal out 7 of these, and I'll just take a look at them and see what really stands out. It could be monsters, it could be people, things, etc. I'll pick 4 or 5 things from these, and then I'll come back and add those to my themes and detail list. So from this spread, I grabbed a few details. Gambler Potion. Medusa might be a really interesting addition to this secret passageway dungeon, because maybe she is the one, or he is the one, who betrayed the rest of the Rogues Guild. Minotaur might fit. Scholar Merchant Key, these are all just details, and I forgot to mention earlier, I did add this question: where does the passage lead? That's going to be important in the lore of this dungeon. So from this point, you would decide on your common areas, how many common areas you have, what the common areas or common enemies are, the unique areas, unique enemies. For the sake of this video, I'm going to make 1 common room before we get to this first unique room. I'm just going to write a couple. Let's see, at this entrance, maybe my scholar is here trying to find a way deeper into the secret passageway. So this is an entrance with scholar. I'm going to put a little heart symbol on here. So there's going to be a scholar here regardless of what else comes up on the cards, and I'll show you that shortly. For common areas, or common enemies rather, I'm going to put rats here, and just to have something else in this one when I get there, I'm going to put rats as well. If I go with Medusa, not only is there a Medusa, but that is also a theme, because you might see petrified people. So keep everything in mind when you're doing this. Medusa as a theme adds a lot to the dungeon as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you the next tool I use, which is to actually either design a dungeon or to run it on the fly. What I really like to use is the dungeon deck by Crooked Staff Publishing. These cards are simple, but I like them for a couple reasons. Number one, they do have a playing card, rank, and suit on them. This is not unique to this set of cards. The Axbane's deck of mini dungeons also has a card suit and rank, but what I like is that these geomorphs are perfectly square. In Axbane's, I like the art, I like these little tables, but I don't necessarily need them if I'm using the themes and details of my dungeon properly. I like the square geomorphs though, because a lot of times you'll get long cards that makes it really difficult to line things up sometimes. And that's really the reason I prefer this dungeon deck. So I'm going to do a very brief explanation of how this answer pool and the questions work. And then I'm going to wait and do some actual role play until next week's video. I do have rules for this, but I don't want to show them just yet. I'm recording on November 11th, and this video won't post until the 23rd. So that gives me plenty of time to tweak and alter the rules before I show them to the public. But what the rules say when you're going through a dungeon, right now I need a common area, which is an ace through 10. If I drew a unique, Jack, Queen, or King, I will discard that and continue drawing, and vice versa. If I need a unique but draw a common, I'll discard. So right away with a common area, which is good, it's a 2 of hearts. That tells me, number 1, that it's common. Number 2, tells me what question to ask the Oracle. So there is a person in this common area, and I'm gonna ask, is this person alive? No, in this first area, this person is not alive, and I'm gonna draw another card and add another person to this room. So, no, the person is not alive, and person. Now you're gonna interpret that based on your story, based on what's going on. You might say, this person's not alive because this person killed them. You know, that's up to how you interpret the answer. Because I've gone into that room, I'm gonna cross that off. Next, I'm gonna be progressing into a unique area, so I need a unique card. I'm gonna just go through these until I get a Jack, Queen, or King. I get that Queen, I'm gonna put it like that. I'm gonna move these over just a bit. Now, I do have a spade, which is a hidden thing. Has this hidden thing been discovered? Ask the Oracle. No, and whatever's here hasn't been discovered, and there's an enemy. So, should have written, I'm gonna put guard here, just because. I'd say maybe someone's guarding that entrance. So, whatever's hidden here hasn't been discovered, and guard, or and enemy. So you'll interpret that answer, tell the players, you know, the scene, describe the scene, and then ask, what do you do? Next, when you progress the next time, because I'm starting a new column, this is where it gets interesting. So I need to have a common room. That is a common room. I'll place that. I'll mark off. I should have marked that off. I'll mark this off. And because I've marked the first progress box in a new column, I'm gonna mark off this answer in the answer pool. So when I ask my question, this is a diamond, so I'm gonna ask, has this treasure already been discovered? I get a no but. But if I'd gotten a yes and, I would redraw, because this answer is no longer valid. It's no longer part of the answer pool. So the answer I get is no but treasure. So the treasure hasn't been discovered, but there's other treasure too. Again, you'll interpret that however you want to interpret it, describe the situation, and ask the players what they want to do. Finally, I'll explain how this answer pool works to make the dungeon more perilous as you go. So, as you progress, and I do have rules for progressing right to left in case you put a second entrance at 5. This came up a bunch of times during playtesting where I'd put a valuable piece of treasure or a dragon, something here in the middle room, and then put 2 entrances so they could come either way they wanted, or whichever way they discovered would be the way they enter. But for the most part, you're going to progress left to right. As you do that, you start crossing these answers out of the answer pool. And what happens when you get to about the midway point, yes is no longer a valid answer. So I just took a peek at the deck to see what the next card was. Let's say I draw a card, 8 of spades, slide this under here. Okay, that's a spade. Has the hidden thing already been discovered here? Yes and. Yes and is no longer a valid answer. No and is a valid answer. What happens, as you ask these questions, they become more perilous. The hidden thing, let's say it is a trap, hasn't been discovered yet. The person you might find here is no longer alive. The enemies are not going to flee because your yes answers are off the board. Treasure has not already been discovered because no one's made it this far. As you progress, it gets more and more perilous. And that's really, I think, the mechanical thing that makes this system work better than just randomly flipping cards and going through random rooms. So that's it. That's how I create and run dungeons in Dungeon World, either for myself as a solo player or for others, or to design a dungeon. Sometimes you might run through this process just to design a neat looking dungeon. That's a totally valid use as well. You know what to do if you enjoy my content. Thanks for watching, and I hope you come back next week because I'm going to run Brienne, the merciless evil fighter, through a new dungeon. Have a great day.